There's a certain distance that doesn't push a man away. It drives him crazy. A distance that makes it impossible for him to forget you, that makes him obsessively think of your absence, and his only impulse is to return. But this time, with a desire so intense he can no longer ignore it. I'm going to reveal immediately what this distance is. Why does it work like magic on his subconscious? And how can you use it so you're never again the woman he takes for granted? Instead, you'll be the only one his soul can't stop searching for. This video will be special, undoubtedly holding immense value and power. So, right now, give it a like and subscribe. It's completely free for you, and it supports me incredibly. Ready? Let's begin. First pillar, the fear of absence. I'll explain why your panic about him forgetting you actually suffocates him. There's a type of distance that doesn't repel, but compels obsession. A distance born not from anger or pride, but from a silent strength that no one could ever explain to you. And today, you'll discover it. Because as long as you keep acting out of fear of being forgotten, you'll remain a shadow in his world, instead of becoming a sun that's impossible to ignore. Have you ever wondered why the more you fear him leaving, the more distant he seems? Why? The more you crave his messages, his attention, his gaze, the colder, busier, and more indifferent he becomes. The answer isn't in his priorities, or that another woman appeared, or even his feelings. The answer lies in the vibration of your fear. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." And today, you must accept this. When you act from panic about his absence, you only suffocate his presence. This invisible fear turns into a heavy, dense energy in messages seeking confirmation, questions demanding guarantees, in gestures that scream, "Don't leave me, don't forget me, don't go." And for the male ego, this vibration is like chains. No matter how sweet your words, if your energy says, "I need you so I don't feel empty," he senses it. Let me tell you a true story that illustrates this. Her name is Katerina. She's 32 years old. A talented artist, vibrant, charismatic, with such warm energy that she illuminated any space. When she met Michael, everything was perfect at first. He sought her out, called, looked at her with admiration. But as Katerina began to fall in love, she unknowingly started acting out of fear. Every time he didn't reply for a long time, her mind filled with dark thoughts. "He doesn't like me anymore. He must have found someone else. What did I do wrong?" And her behavior changed. She abandoned her studio, stopped going to yoga, meeting with friends. Everything began to revolve around him. If he didn't write, she did. If he was cold, she became even sweeter and more accommodating. If he distanced himself, she approached with doubled force, until one day he simply stopped seeking her out. Katerina was crushed. She didn't understand what had happened. She had given everything, been always there, available, full of love. Until one day her close friend told her, "Your energy wasn't screaming love, it was screaming fear, and a man doesn't want to become an emotional crutch for a woman who can no longer stand on her own 2 feet. That day, Katerina realized that her panic about absence had created real absence. That's the psychological and energetic truth. When your mind is obsessed with the idea of not losing him, your vibrational field constricts around him like a fist. And no man, no matter how much he loves you, wants to feel trapped in someone else's anxiety. Because fear of his absence creates pressure. Pressure creates suffocation, and suffocation creates real distance. But here's the revelation that will change everything. The truly magnetic distance is born when you're no longer afraid of his absence. When you understand that his presence is a gift, not a lifeline. When his silence no longer triggers your wound, but activates your freedom. On that day, your energy changes frequency, and you transform from a magnet shouting, "I need you," into a silent sun that radiates, "I'm fine here, but if you want to get closer, you'll have to be great enough to withstand my light." Because a man doesn't become obsessed with a woman who chases him. He becomes obsessed with a woman who is so full of herself that her presence feels like a privilege. And this woman becomes a queen, not because she ignores him, but because she no longer needs him to look at her to know who she is. Stay with me, because in the next segment, you'll learn the difference between the distance that repels forever and the one that makes his soul search for you, admire you, and choose you like no other. Second pillar, punitive distance versus magnetic distance. This is the distinction that decides everything. Before we continue, I want to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. This will allow me to continue creating these messages and speaking from the heart. And the best part is, it's absolutely free for you. Subscribe now, and we'll move on to the most powerful part that awaits you. Now that you understand that your fear of absence creates a suffocation that pushes him away, it's time to reveal a truth known to very few women. A truth that will forever change how you build relationships. Not all distance repels. There are two types of distance. One destroys everything, and the other drives obsession. Today, you'll learn which is which. First, let's talk about the one most people use without even realizing it. Punitive distance. This is a distance born from a wound, from resentment, from pride, from a need to punish. When he doesn't respond the way you want, when he disappoints you, when his energy seems distant, your wound reacts with punitive distance. What does it look like? You intentionally leave his message unread to show him his place. You ignore him when he writes to make him feel the same way you do. You withdraw with coldness, indifference, or sarcasm. You distance yourself not out of respect for yourself, but to hurt him as he hurt you. And here's the harsh psychological truth. Punitive distance isn't strength. It's pain disguised as indifference. And the man, without even realizing the root of the problem, feels this vibration as an attack, as manipulation, as punishment, and his ego, his inner guardian, responds in the only way he knows how to attack. Defends himself, closes off, distances himself. Let me tell you a true story that illustrates this. Her name is Olga, 29 years old, a marketer, kind, loving, and loyal. She was dating Dmitri, a charismatic, strong, independent, but emotionally avoidant man. One day, after he cancelled a date at the last minute, Olga felt her abandonment wound flare up. Instead of calmly expressing her pain, she decided to apply what she had read online. If he ignores you, ignore him twice as much. So she did. She stopped talking to him, didn't reply to his messages, posted stories on social media where she was having fun, with sassy quotes that were actually veiled hints directed at him. For a few days, Dmitri tried to reach out to her, but his energy wasn't filled with genuine curiosity, but with confusion and irritation, until one day he simply stopped trying. And when Olga decided to reply, it was too late. He had distanced himself forever. Why did this happen? Because punitive distance breeds resentment, not admiration. To the man, her vibration wasn't about self-love, but about punishment. And punishment, even if it seems justified, doesn't create connection. It creates a rift. And here's where the second type of distance comes in, and it changes absolutely everything. Magnetic distance. This is a distance that's born not from pain, but from wholeness. It's not a strategy to make him react. It's a natural consequence of the life of a woman who is so engrossed in her own world that she doesn't have time to chase someone who isn't present in her life. What does this distance look like? When he doesn't reply, you calmly continue your day without interrupting your energy. When he doesn't confirm plans, you don't get angry. You simply reschedule them for a meeting with a friend or an evening with yourself. When he shows coldness, you don't respond in kind. You simply return to your center, to your world, to your peace. And this distance doesn't evoke resentment in him. It creates a void that's filled with his own obsession. Because here's the hidden psychology of magnetic distance. The male ego needs space for idealization. Absence breeds projection. What cannot be easily possessed becomes the ultimate desire. But this distance won't work if you use it as a tactic. It won't work if you count the hours until his message. It won't work if your mind is still fixated on him while you pretend to be busy. It works when you're truly busy with yourself. Carl Jung said that the unconscious of a man is drawn not to the woman who begs him, nor the one who punishes, but to the one who dwells in her own kingdom, with such presence that her absence becomes a mystery that cannot be ignored. But how do you create this magnetic void so it doesn't look like cheap manipulation? The answer lies in the following key. Third pillar, the art of creating a void. How your silences and focus on yourself become his obsession. If you understand that magnetic distance isn't punishment, but a reflection of your wholeness, you're ready to master the most powerful art in female energy, the creation of a void. Because a man doesn't become obsessed with a woman who is always available, or one who makes demands on him, or one who ignores him with resentment. A man becomes obsessed with a woman who creates a void. But what does it mean to create a void? It's not disappearing to manipulate, not cutting off contact to punish, not ignoring him while staring at the screen waiting for his message. Creating a void is an energetic art. It's returning to yourself with such intensity that his mind cannot fill the space you've left. Let me give you a real example. Her name is Svetlana. She's 38 years old. She's a successful lawyer and a mother of 2 children. She met Igor, a successful entrepreneur, divorced, with a very full life of his own. In the beginning, he pursued her constantly. Messages in the morning, video calls at lunch, evening dates full of connection and depth. But over time, Igor started writing less often, focused more on work, replied with delays, and Svetlana felt her abandonment wound flare up. Her mind screamed, "Write to him first, tell him you miss him, ask if everything is okay." But something in her intuition whispered, "Don't act from fear, act from love for yourself." That day, instead of seeking him out, Svetlana created a void. She returned to her morning runs in the park, which she had abandoned. She signed up for a sommelier course she had long dreamed of, began writing articles for a legal blog, a project she had been postponing for years, focusing on the relationship. She started going for walks without her phone, began dancing alone in the living room again when the children fell asleep, as she used to do. And without even realizing it, her mind began to fill with herself. He stopped being the center of her attention. He was part of her world, but he was no longer her world. That's the art of creating a void, to become so full of yourself that his absence is no longer pain, but space for your expansion. And here's the harsh psychology behind this art. When you leave a void in his world, his mind fills it with memories of you. When you're not there, his imagination activates. When you don't reply immediately, he starts asking himself questions. What is she thinking about? Who is she with? What world is she living in right now? Mystery is the main driver of obsession. But listen with your heart. Creating a void isn't about disappearing while pretending to be busy, while you check if he's online. That's not a void. That's disguised anxiety. A true void is created when your life is so filled with you that even if he appears, it won't change the course of your days. Carl Jung said that the greatest attraction is born not from the desire to possess, but from the inability to know someone completely. And that's exactly what a woman creates when she lives for herself. A space of mystery, a vibrational field that cannot be fully grasped. Because a man can love your body, admire your intellect, desire your sexual energy, but he will be obsessed with what he can't possess, your inner world. Stay with me, because in the next section, I'll tell you a true story of a woman who, having become the queen of her inner kingdom, made a man who took her for granted return to her with a desire and respect that he had never felt for anyone else. Fourth pillar, the story of a queen in her kingdom. I'll tell you how a woman busy with herself became irresistible. There are stories that don't just inspire, they activate, because they awaken in you something that was already there, but dormant. Today, I'll tell you the real story of a woman who understood the art of magnetic distance, not as a strategy, but as a natural consequence of becoming the queen of her own kingdom. Her name is Marina. She's 41 years old, an architect, divorced for 3 years, and a mother to a teenage son. When she met Anton, a charismatic entrepreneur, confident, with an energy that filled any space, her world shook. After many years devoted only to work and her son, she felt that spark again, that life, that vibration that made her feel like a woman again. In the beginning, Anton sought her out with incredible intensity. Messages of good morning and good night, flowers sent to the office, spontaneous plans, deep gazes that made her tremble. Marina began to fall in love, and like many women, imperceptibly, began to give him her center. She stopped taking on additional design projects to be free if he called, cancelled dinners with friends when he suddenly appeared, waited for his message before going to bed, and if there was none, her evening was ruined. And as in an inevitable scenario, the more available Marina became, the more distant Anton became. From daily messages, he moved to writing once every 3 days, from spontaneous lunches to meetings only on weekends, and even then, only if nothing urgent came up. Marina felt fear overcoming her, that same fear of absence, the fear that he would forget her, that it was all another mirage in her life. Until one day, while sorting through old photos, She came across a picture of herself from 5 years ago. In it, she was laughing, full of strength and independence, at the top of a mountain after a difficult hike. At that moment, something clicked. She realized that since meeting Anton, she had left her own kingdom. She had stepped off her throne to stand by the gate waiting for his appearance, and there she decided that it was over. That day, Marina did something different. She signed up for a marathon and started training. It became her temple, her sacred space, a place where her mind calmed down and her energy expanded. She skipped running because the training coincided with the time he usually called. She accepted an offer to head a complex architectural project in another city. She had always dreamed of combining travel and work, but thought, if I leave, he won't be able to see me. She began attending art history courses, not to attract him, but to cleanse her field of the need to be chosen. During these 2 weeks of transformation, she heard nothing from Anton. No message, no call. Her former self would have collapsed, but this new Marina felt full. Every night as she went to bed, she smiled with gratitude, because for the first time in years, she felt that her life belonged to her. And for the female soul, that is freedom. And then, the inevitable happened. On Sunday afternoon, as she came out of training, with a relaxed face and an elated soul, she received a message from Anton. "Hello, Queen. Haven't heard from you in a while. Are you okay? I miss you." Marina smiled, not from the ego, but from the soul, because she understood something that no woman forgets when she integrates it into herself. A man doesn't miss a woman who is always there. He misses a woman who lives in such a captivating world that her absence becomes an unbearable void. But the most amazing thing wasn't his message, but what happened next. When they finally met, Anton was different. In his gaze, there was no longer that condescension of a man who takes a woman for granted. It was the gaze of a man who feels that if he doesn't do everything right, he might lose her. And in that gaze was something Marina had never seen before. Respect, admiration, amazement. Because when a woman becomes the queen of her kingdom, she doesn't need to ignore a man to attract him. Her energy itself creates a magnetic field that he cannot resist. Even the most powerful queen can lose her throne in an instant. In the moment he returns, how you handle it will decide everything. And that's our final, most important secret. Fifth and last pillar, when he returns. I'll tell you how to receive him to forever secure your new status of high value. If you have applied everything you have heard so far, you already know what will happen, because when a woman creates a void from her strength, when her distance is magnetic and not punitive, when her life is so full of herself that her energy no longer vibrates in need, he always returns, sometimes with a timid message, sometimes with a casual call, sometimes with an anxious silence seeking your reaction, but he returns. And this is where most women lose their power again, in how they receive him. Because if when he returns, you receive him from your old wound, all the energetic progress you have achieved will collapse in seconds. Let me tell you a real story that illustrates this with perfect clarity. Her name is Anna. She's 29 years old. She has a big heart, a soft energy, and a past full of relationships where she always gave more. Having applied magnetic distance with her partner Pavel, a man with a chaotic life and emotionally immature, she managed to make him seek her out again. He went from silence for several days to daily messages asking how she was doing, from uncertainty with plans to persistent requests for a meeting. But on the day they finally saw each other, Anna received him as the woman she had always been, with anxious hugs, with questions hiding her fear. "Why have you been so distant? Did you miss me? Did something happen to you?" With a glimmer in her eyes that screamed, "Finally you're back. Now I can be okay again." And Pavel, instead of deepening the connection, felt relief, not admiration, not amazement, not challenge, just peace of mind. Because without even realizing it, Anna had shown him that although his distance broke her, she would always be there, regardless of how he behaved. Here's the psychological and energetic truth that you must assimilate. How you receive him determines whether he returns with respect and desire or with comfort and routine. If you receive him from need, you reinforce his ego. If you receive him from resentment, you activate his defense. But if you receive him from your center, from your peace, from your throne, his soul perceives it as an electrical charge, and his mind translates it as admiration. Carl Jung said that true female power is silent. It doesn't seek to prove anything. It simply manifests. And whoever senses it will never look at her the same way again. So how do you receive a man who returns after having felt your magnetic distance? With calm? When he writes, don't reply immediately if you're busy. It's not a game. It's respect for your present, with gentle warmth. When you see him, greet him with a soft smile, without that anxious glimmer in your eyes that screams, finally you're here. With light curiosity, don't ask, why haven't you written to me? Ask, how was your week? Let him feel that he is being seen, not interrogated, with queenly self-possession. Let your words say, I'm glad to see you, but let your energy say, my world is full with you and without you. Because here's the real alchemy. A man doesn't stay because you need him. He stays when he feels that your life is so full that his presence is a privilege, not a necessity. When he returns, receive him as a queen receives a guest, with respect, with kindness, with openness, but with the certainty that his presence is welcome, but not vital. Don't be the woman who melts at his return anymore. Be the woman who smiles at him and thinks, it's logical that you came back. There is no other kingdom like this. Now you know, it's not your closeness that makes him love you. Your magnetic distance makes him remember you when you're not there, idealize you when he can't touch you, and seek you out when he feels that your world continues to revolve, with him or without him. Today, you understood that it's not about ignoring him for punishment or distancing yourself to provoke, but about returning to yourself with such strength and love that his soul will feel that to deserve you, he will have to grow. Because a woman who creates a void is not cold, she is conscious. A woman who doesn't chase is not indifferent, she is wise. A woman who dwells in her kingdom is not selfish, she is a queen. Write in the comments, today I choose to be the queen of my kingdom. Write it and proclaim that from this moment on, your presence is a privilege, your time is sacred, and your energy is a magnetic field that no man will be able to forget. And always remember, love is not begged for. Love is attracted by that same distance that makes him return obsessed.